Hello, Mr. Vice President. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to talk here today. I did not agree with many of the things that you said right ahead of this, but I don't think that's my point to discuss here. What I want to ask is, you are married to a woman who is not Christian. In her Wikipedia, I just looked that up. I wanted to know what her faith was. I didn't know this before. But she still calls herself Hindu. You are raising three kids in cultural, racial, religious household. How are you maintaining or how are you teaching your kids not to keep your religion ahead of their mother's religion? Or how are you teaching them that your kind, they're that kind who got here just few years or few decades ago is different or is better than your mom's kind who got here just a generation before?
Hey folks, welcome back to 45th Perspective, your hub for straight talk, patriotic commentary, and no BS analysis. If you're new here, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. Also consider supporting the channel on our Patreon page at patreon.com/45thperspective for as low as $5 a month. Your support helps keep this content flowing and independent. Today, we're reacting to a recent hearing in the U.S. Senate and related remarks concerning immigration policy, assimilation, and the role of faith and identity in families and society. In short, there was a question-and-answer session where a high-ranking official was challenged on how to balance raising children in an interfaith household, how immigration levels relate to national identity, and whether the U.S. has too many immigrants for social cohesion. The topic touches on the very heart of what keeps the American Republic strong: assimilation, sovereignty, faith, and the rule of law. So let's dive in, break down what was said, what the implications are, and how we, as right-wing patriots, should interpret, critique, and act on all of this. First off, let's set the stage. The core of the discussion is twofold. One, how do you manage interfaith families, especially when one spouse is Christian and the other is not, and how does that play into American identity, religious freedom, and parenting? Two, and more broadly, how do immigration levels, assimilation of newcomers, and maintaining a sense of shared culture tie into the future of the nation? The person being questioned acknowledged that his wife did not grow up Christian, described their household as interfaith, and explained how they chose to raise their kids Christian, while also emphasizing respect for the spouse's free will in religion. On immigration, he stated he believed the United States should reduce immigration levels in the future, even as he affirmed that those who came legally deserve respect. He argued that just because past immigration levels worked doesn't mean we must bind ourselves to those levels forever, and that at some point, high immigration numbers can undermine a common sense of American identity and social trust. He referenced, for example, the 1920s U.S. Immigration Act and drew lessons from it. Now I'm going to walk you through my take on all of this, straight from a patriotic, traditional conservative vantage point, and I'll unpack where I agree, where I think the argument falls short, and what we should do going forward. 1. On the topic of interfaith households and religious identity, it's refreshing to hear an official say, yes, faith matters. Yes, parenting matters. Yes, cultural coherence matters. In many conservative circles, there is concern that faith and identity are being eroded. So when someone openly says, we decided to raise our children Christian and we talk about this stuff with each other, that's in line with what patriots believe, that the passing on of values, religious tradition, and identity matters deeply for a functioning society. At the same time, there is an important nuance: respecting free will. He acknowledges that his wife may or may not come to his faith, and that's fine under the Christian principle of free will. That's also in line with traditional religious liberty. You don't force belief, but you pass on a tradition and you respect the individual. From a right-wing patriot perspective, that's healthy. The family is the foundational institution of society. If families neglect faith, neglect culture, fail to have meaningful conversations about identity, then the result is atomization, rootlessness, and a weakening of national cohesion. This official's remarks show someone taking family seriously, taking faith seriously, and taking culture seriously. But I want to be clear, The problem is when public policy, elites, or the ruling culture treat religious faith as optional or irrelevant, when assimilation is mocked, or when identity is treated purely in transactional economic terms. The comments here push back somewhat on that by saying, yes, identity matters. We should acknowledge that. One thing though, when these discussions are public, they inevitably raise questions about what does being American mean? Is it just legal status? Or is it cultural assimilation, language, values, Christian heritage, constitutional tradition? The official argues you need a common community and a sense of identity in order for immigration to work. That means immigration isn't just about legal permission, but about cultural fit and long-term integration. That's a key point that patriots often emphasize, not shutting our doors, but making sure newcomers join our civic culture and values, not just settle in parallel. So in short, I'm on board with his framing of interfaith family dynamics, faith transmission, and free will. I just push further. I want public policy that supports families like this, that rewards assimilation, that encourages faith, that strengthens culture, not undermines it. 2. On immigration levels and assimilation. Now we get into the meat of the matter, immigration levels and assimilation. The official says, yes, we should honor the law and respect people who came legally and contributed. But going forward, we should reduce immigration numbers in order to preserve a sense of shared identity and social cohesion. From a patriotic viewpoint, that's a critical admission. Too often people on the right shy away from numbers. They act as though open door forever is fine. But what he's saying is, indefinite high levels of immigration without assimilation create fractures, separate communities, weakened bonds, less trust, less loyalty to the American project. That's correct. Social trust is the glue of free societies. When you flood societies with newcomers without a strong shared culture, you risk generating parallel societies and social fragmentation. He references the 1920s example. Immigration was reduced, and the expectation of assimilation was present. He remarks that the current system fails to create that common identity. That's something we must pay attention to. But let's dig deeper. What does reduce immigration mean? He didn't give a firm number, at least in the remarks I saw. That's a weakness. Without a target number, it's just rhetoric. To turn that into policy, we need clarity. What are our national interest limits? What % of population growth, what capacity for assimilation, what method of selection? Are we focusing on high-skilled, culture-fit immigrants? Are we increasing enforcement at the border? Are we prioritizing newcomers who speak English, who pledge allegiance to American constitutional norms, who want to assimilate, who don't plan to live in enclaves? These are the specifics patriots demand. He also stressed, my job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the whole world. It's to look out for the people of the United States. That is a correct conservative principle. Sovereignty means the U.S. sets its own terms. National interest first. Yet, paradoxically, advocates for open borders often use moralistic slogans like open arms and we owe the world. But the truth is, nations do not owe the world unlimited access. That is not just conservative. It's common sense. So I applaud the statement. But I also push we need to operationalize it. Recognize the costs of high immigration. Strain on schools, healthcare, infrastructure, wages, especially for lower-income Americans. The societal costs of poor assimilation. The fact that in many places immigrant populations vote differently, criminal justice outcomes differ, linguistic segregation persists, cultural friction arises. It's not xenophobic to ask these questions. It's patriotic to do so. Also, the official raised the idea that unlimited immigrants undermine labor unions and social bonds. The argument: when immigrant workers are plentiful, they are cheaper, divisions within labor arise, social trust falls, collective institutions weaken. That's a point often missed in conventional conservative discourse, but it resonates. The idea: a society needs not just borders, but internal social compact. Immigration is not just an economic decision. It's a cultural decision. If you don't incorporate newcomers into the culture, you undermine the culture. 3. On values, identity, and the future of the American project. The driving concern here is, What becomes of America if we remain culturally bifurcated? If newcomers do not assimilate? If we lose our Christian heritage, whether strictly religious or broader Judeo-Christian ethos? If the civic compact erodes? The official's remarks that we must rebuild common community touch that nerve. From the right-wing patriot viewpoint, the American project was never just about legal status. It was about values: liberty, property, rule of law, ordered liberty, responsibility, faith, civic virtue. Immigration policy must reflect that. If we open doors indiscriminately, we invite people who do not share these values, or who may actively resist assimilation, or who hold competing loyalties. That doesn't mean every immigrant is culpable. Far from it. Many immigrants do embrace these values. But we must structure policy so that healthy assimilation is the expectation, not the exception. One thing to note: the official said that just because people who came decades ago did well doesn't mean the same immigration numbers make sense forever. That's real. Economic conditions, labor markets, demographics change. Infrastructure changes. Social capital changes. The world is different, so policy should adapt. That is a mature conservative viewpoint. Respect tradition, but adjust to new realities. Open door? No. Limited, selective immigration that prioritizes assimilation? Yes. 4. Where I think the arguments are incomplete or where patriots should push further. While I agree with a lot of what was said, we need to go further. A few areas: clarity in numbers and selection criteria. It's insufficient to say far less than what we've been accepting. We need a target. For example, do we reduce legal immigration by 50%, 80%? Over what time frame? What categories? Family-based versus merit-based versus refugee/asylum. What limits on chain migration? What about guest workers? The policy needs specification. Enforcement and border security. It's not enough to talk about future levels. We must address the present flood of illegal immigration, asylum abuse, chain migration, visa overstays. If legal levels are cut but illegal entrance remains uncontrolled, that's hypocrisy. Patriots demand secure borders, enforcement of existing laws, and penalties for violations. Assimilation requirements. The official mentioned the need for assimilation. But how do we enforce or encourage it? Do we require English proficiency? Do we condition certain benefits on assimilation? Should we monitor immigrant communities for parallel institutions or non-assimilative behavior? These are politically difficult but necessary questions. Cultural transmission. On the family front, the official's remarks about raising children Christian in an interfaith household are good, but patriots should push for public policy that strengthens families and faith institutions, that rewards those who integrate, that supports traditional marriage, that sanctions destructive behavior. If we believe in the American Judeo-Christian cultural inheritance, we must promote it. Public narrative and patriotism. We must push back against the narrative that calls any criticism of immigration xenophobic or racist. The official is framing it as patriotism, national interest, assimilation, cohesion. We must amplify that. We must argue. Wanting fewer immigrants so that America remains unified is not hatred of people. It is love for our country. 5. What this means for us, the action plan. Because we're patriots, we don't just comment, we act. So here's how we can translate all this into action. At the community level, support local initiatives that help newcomers assimilate. English language classes, civic education, mentoring programs. If we open the door, let's also help them join the culture, not live outside it. At the political level, demand our elected officials produce immigration policy with numbers, criteria, and enforcement. Lobby Republicans to adopt the sorts of frameworks the official discussed: lower levels, assimilation emphasis, citizenship requirements. In the media/culture sphere, promote the value of assimilation, national identity, faith, and family. Support churches and faith-based organizations that help immigrant families join American tradition rather than remain separate. On the family level, speaking to my viewers, if you are raising children, whether in interfaith marriage or not, make faith, identity, civic virtue part of your household. Share the story of America with your children. Encourage loyalty to the country, understanding of its founding, and appreciation for what it stands for. On the voter level, understand that immigration is not just a policy for immigrants. It is one of the most important policies for what kind of country we will become. The future of our constitutional republic, our freedoms, our culture depends on this. 6. Final thoughts and takeaways. To wrap up, the remarks we're reacting to are significant. They reflect a viewpoint emerging on the conservative side that says, yes, you can both honor legal immigration and believe that we must reduce numbers, prioritize assimilation, build cohesion, and protect national identity. That aligns with patriotic principles. Sovereignty, identity, rule of law, culture, faith. But the devil will be in the details, the policy specifics, the enforcement, the criteria, the public narrative. And for patriots, the battle will also be cultural. Making sure we don't let a flood of newcomers erode our values, yet we don't demonize individuals or betray our traditions of pluralism, liberty, and opportunity. So if you're watching this, I'd urge you, stay informed, stay vocal. Demand from your representatives serious policy, not empty rhetoric. Support organizations that help assimilation. Support faith and family in your communities. And keep the message alive. America is not just a place on a map. It's a covenant of culture, constitution, faith, responsibility, and freedom. Thanks for tuning in. If you found value in this breakdown and want more commentary like this, please like, subscribe, and share the video with others who care about the future of this country. And again, if you want to support independent commentary and make sure 45th Perspective keeps going strong, head over to patreon.com/45th Perspective. For as low as $5 a month, you help us keep the lights on and the truth coming. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay patriotic, and let's keep fighting for the America we love.
How are you balancing that? And when you talk about too many immigrants here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You made us spend our youth, our wealth in this country and gave us a dream. You don't owe us anything. We have worked hard for it. Then how can you as a vice president stand there and say that we have too many of them now and we are going to take them out to people who are here rightfully so by paying the money that you guys asked us? You gave us the path, and now how can you stop it and tell us we don't belong here anymore? And one more thing, I'm sorry, one more thing.
Sure.
Do you have to
There's
be...
a lot there. I don't know if I'm going to remember all this, but I will try.
I'm sorry. I had to say all of this, and please take it with due... I'm saying all of this with due respect.
Go ahead, please.
I have no intention of causing a scene here or anything, but...
We're not close to causing a scene, don't worry.
But we talked about Christianity, all of this. I'm not even Christian, and I'm here standing to so support. Why are we making Christianity one of the major things that you have to have in common to be one of you guys, to show that I love America just as much as you do? Why is that still a question? Why do I have to be a Christian?
Okay, so there was a lot there, and I'm going to try to respond to as much of it as I can. So on the question of immigration, so first of all, I can believe that we should have lower immigration levels, but if the United States passed a law and made a promise to somebody, the United States, of course, has to honor that promise. Nobody's talking about that. I'm talking about people who came in violation of the laws of the United States of America, and I'm talking about in the future reducing the number of people. Sorry, what?
May I continue on that? Because when you just said you are not stopping with the people who came here legally, right? But you are pushing out policies that hurt us. And these policies are not even solving the problems. These policies are just creating chaos.
Ma'am. Okay, so again, I'm gonna finish answering the question, and then if I've answered all 9 of your questions in less than 15 minutes, then we can keep on going. We got to have a little fun, right? So here's the thing. I can believe that the United States should lower its levels of immigration in the future while also respecting that there are people who have come here through lawful immigration pathways that have contributed to the country. But just because one person or 10 people or 100 people came in legally and contributed to the United States of America, does that mean that we're thereby committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people a year in the future? No, that's not right. We cannot have, I'll go and finish. We cannot have an immigration policy where what was good for the country 50 or 60 years ago binds the country inevitably for the future. There's too many people who want to come to the United States of America, and my job as vice president is not to look out for the interests of the whole world, it's to look out for the people of the United States. Now, you asked a personal question about our interfaith household. And yes, my wife did not grow up Christian. I think it's fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not in a particularly religious family in either direction. In fact, when I met my wife, we were both, I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and that's what I think she would have considered herself as well. You know, everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our two oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. But, thank you. My 8-year-old was also very proud of his first communion. Thank you, guys. I'll tell him that Ole Miss wishes him the best. But I think everybody has to have this own conversation when you're in a marriage. I mean, it's true for friends of mine who are in Protestant and Catholic marriages, friends of mine who are in, atheist and Christian marriages. You just got to talk to the only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with, and you've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will, and so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love. Again, one of the most important Christian principles is that you respect free will. Usha's closer to the priests who baptized me than maybe I am. They talk about this stuff. My attitude is you figure this stuff out as a family, and you trust in God to have a plan, and you try to follow it as best as you can. And that's what I try to do. I want to make a final point. So I don't want to cut you off. I want to be respectful to all the people behind you in line. But I want to make this point about immigration, okay? If you ask the question, what is the exact right number of immigrants for the United States to let in, it is just very specific on the context. If you go back to the 1920s, the United States passed an Immigration Reform Act that effectively cut down immigration to close to zero for 40 years in this country. And what happened over those 40 years? The many, many people who had come from many different foreign countries and different foreign cultures, they assimilated into American culture. And there was an expectation that they would assimilate into American culture. I think we have two problems in our immigration system today. And my guess is you're probably a slightly more leftist political persuasion, liberal political persuasion, maybe not. But here's the thing. I remember back in my establishment GOP days, when I was still very early getting involved in Republican politics, I remember a conservative think tank person who told me that one of the reasons why immigration was really good is that if you had enough diversity in a country, people would mistrust each other and they wouldn't join labor unions. Okay? So when I see a lot of left-wing people who theoretically support organized labor saying we need to flood the country with a limitless number of immigrants, they're unwilling to set any limitations on it. My response to that is you are destroying the very social trust on which American freedom and prosperity was built. And that is really important to me. So the honest answer to your question, what is the exact number of immigrants America should accept in the future? Right now, the answer is far less than we've been accepting. We have got to become a common community again, and you can't do that when you have such high numbers of immigration, which is one of the reasons why we have the immigration policy we do. Thank you. Next.